Hello, my name's Darren James.
So, Darren, where are you from?
Oh, I am from Birmingham, so that's where I was born and bred, raised for most of my life, most of my childhood and adolescence. My parents are Caribbean, so my dad's of Jamaican descent and my mother's of St. Kitts and Nevis descent, so collectively you'll call me a Caribbean boy.
No, okay.
In British form.
And what was your childhood like?
Well, first and foremost, I knew both of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I knew who my dad was, my mum was. They did break up when I was about maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
But I had consistent contact with my father, so no, I didn't. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Yeah.
However, I never went without a meal. I never had dirty clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I had a roof over my head, so it was good. The basics were met.
In terms of like home life, did you have any siblings, brothers, sisters?
Yes, I did actually. You probably wouldn't believe it, but I got 5 sisters.
Oh no. No. Are you the only boy?
No, I got 2 younger brothers as well.
Oh, okay.
So 2 older sisters and everybody else is younger. I went to a few schools,
What was your What was your first school?
I went to Cottesbrook Nursery, Cottesbrook Infant School, Cottesbrook Junior School, Severn Road Junior School, and then secondary school I went to was Harborne Hill. And well, I don't think it's even called that anymore. I think
It's called Harborne Academy.
Academy, okay, fine. It's an academy now.
Yeah.
But I went when it was called Harborne Hill.
Yeah.
I did about a year there, and then I went to another secondary school, the other side of town, George Dixon. GD was very interesting. I'd say it was probably the most entertaining out of all the schools I've been to. Reason being is that there was a fight every single day.
Yeah.
There was all types of drama going on. It was entertainment central.
So why did you leave from Harborne Hill to George Dixon?
Oh, now you're asking. I got kicked out of Harborne Hill.
In year 7?
In year 7, yeah. Then I went to George Dixon for year 8. But I was only there for year 8 as well before I got kicked out of that school.
Why did you get kicked out of Harborne Hill?
So Harborne Hill, it was fighting. Yeah.
And then when you moved to GD, you got kicked out because...
Fighting.
So you just... Okay. So
it was fighting as well as me being disrespectful to the teachers as well. So.
And then you moved to... What school did you go to?
So I went to another school. It's in Newtown, but it's no longer there. It's where the retirement village.
There's a retirement village.
Yeah, it's now a retirement village, but it used to be a school, a part-time school. So for year 9, I was in a centre, part-time school, and that was called Burlington, Newtown. I was there for year 9.
Okay, and then after that...
Year 10, I spent about the first 3 months of year 10 in another centre. This was called the Bridge Centre. Mm-hmm. And in that part-time school, it was a situation where it was a transition from the naughty school into mainstream school, and that's what brought me into my final secondary school, which was Cockshut Hill for year 10, where I did my GCSEs and A-levels. At
this time, when you're moving from school to school, what is the relationship like with your mum and your parents in general, actually, your mum and your dad?
Okay. Compared to the relationship that I have with my parents now, It's all loving, it's all love. Back then, it wasn't the best because I was effectively doing everything my parents told me not to. That led me onto a treacherous path.
So when you came to Cockshut Hill, you came because you were essentially a naughty kid. So you were in a gang. What was this gang called?
Yes, so it was a gang, and back then we used to call it Slash.
And just give us like a background. What is Slash? And what is it? What area does it cover?
Back then, I'm not one of the founding members or anything.
Yeah.
In fact, it went on way before I even fathomed becoming a gang member. But everybody knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It was a group of guys from one side of town who were beefing with guys from another side of town. Mm-hmm. And
what were the sides of towns called?
So you'd have it was a offshoot of the Burger Bar / Johnson type warfare, and there were all these different groups that would come together, which would fight against the same cause, against each other, and I fell on the side which was fighting against the Handsworth guys, so I was on the Johnson /
So that's Johnson is Newtown, Aston.
Yeah, so it was Newtown, Aston, Erdington, Nechells.
I remember this scene vividly and I don't know if you remember, I forgot his name, I won't even mention his name anyway, it was this white kid, and he would literally just trying it with you. He was basically trying to show everybody that he's bad. I don't know if you remember that.
I think that was my first day.
Yeah, and I think you just ignored him.
Yeah.
You just ignored him, and he was really red in the face, really angry. But I think you ignored him. At that time, what were you thinking? Were you thinking like, I can't go back to like what I was doing before?
You know, I think being on the streets, it exposes you to a lot of human nature, and there's always guys that want to puff out their chest, but I've already been around guys that are badder than him. So it wasn't a thing whereby whatever he whatever he showed me, I hadn't seen before. I'd seen people worse than him. So whatever he was showing me, I was happy to ignore it and just pretend it wasn't there because he's not from the environments that I've been in. So
I feel like he was just trying to show people like, oh, whatever he slashed, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can still, I remember, and you literally just ignored him. But do you think that cockshot like slowed you down and kind of started to take you away from it?
Yeah, I think it did, because I think it really, I changed my approach in that school because I've realised from all the errors I've made previously, when you can have your favourite teachers and you can have the teachers that you don't like, and I find quite often that, for example, in George Dixon, my form teacher was really nice. I'd be the best for her. I'll be on my best behaviour for her, and then I'll be on my worst behaviour for the maths teacher or the science teacher. And it would always confuse me. Wait, how does my form teacher, my form tutor, know about things that I did in maths? And it all started to click. Okay, so the teachers are going to see us in our respective classes, but they're all going to go back to the staff room at some point and gossip about us. Then I said to myself that if I was just to be cool with all the teachers, don't cause any problems with anyone, any of the teachers, they'll be on my side. And that's the approach that I took in Cockshot. I thought that if I'm disrespectful to the teachers, don't get into any fights, I can at least survive, and it worked.
I remember you leaving school and your bigger people called you and you guys were going to
do some
stuff. Can you talk about that or no?
I'd say I think it would suffice to say that quite often I'd get calls during school or before school, and things would happen.
Yeah. And you'd go?
Of course. Because there's money involved. So I think when you're a teenager, you don't think, you're not risk savvy, you just take any risk because there's money at the end of it.
Yeah.
You want money to impress girls, and that's pretty much what it was.
What did you guys, I don't know, get up to on a day today? Let's say it's a Saturday. What are you guys doing?
On Saturday. So to begin with, it was more so just badness, just looking for your enemies.
So actively
looking
out.
for your enemies. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And this is in cars?
This is on foot, cars, bicycle, whatever.
So you'd go to like your
No, I think the easiest way to find them on a normal Saturday is just go to the town centre and you'll see them.
Oh yeah, back in the day they were in town all the time, yeah. So did you ever get in trouble with the law?
Consistent.
So how many times have you been arrested?
More times than I can count. Yeah, but several.
What were they for?
So it's mainly for sort of violent offences. So fighting, there were a few stabbings on there, a few firearms, etc.
So when you were 16, you got in trouble with the law. So at this time you were doing your GCSEs. What was that for?
So I might rewind just a little bit. So when it came to year 11, which is I'm not sure if they classify it in that way anymore, but year 11, all I wanted to do was sell coke. All I wanted to do was sell crack and heroin. That's all. I got to year 11 and I was sick of school. That's all I wanted to do. So for most of year 11, I wasn't really attending school. I was just out on the streets trying to make my money, and that was it. 2009, that was a pivotal year in my life. Reason being is that's the year that I think everything changed. It got very, very bad before it got better. So I would probably go to school maybe once a week or something, just so I could do the exam preparation. But other than that, it was just streets. It was I think it was the 14th of January 2009. I get a bang on the door. Boom, boom, boom. You already know when it's the police. They
Yeah.
bang the door. I swear they bang the door in such a way you just know who it is, and it's like 5:30 in the morning, and
This is your mom's house.
mom's house, and I open the door. I see red beams and lights everywhere. I see armored vehicles outside the door. I open the door, and the police officer pushes the warrant in my face and says, "Are you Darren James? Get down." Did that. Took me away. Now that arrest was linked to a firearms incident, which was about a month prior, where I had been allegedly recognised on some CCTV wielding a gun. But they searched the house, didn't find a weapon, and several months later, the case was no further action. So there was some. So 2009. So we had the 14th of January. That arrest happened. Then I think it was about 2 months later, the police imposed an antisocial behaviour order, and that.
Can you explain what a antisocial behaviour
Yeah, so
order is?
antisocial behaviour order is a legal mechanism whereby the police attempt to regulate and control a person's behaviour to steer them away from crime, but there are penalties attached to it. So, for example, mine, I wasn't allowed to be in Erdington, Newtown, City Centre, Nechells. There was an exclusion zone within which I couldn't enter legally, and if I was found there, I would be in breach of the order, and I'd likely go to prison. So that came in March, and that ASBO was in place for probably 4 years. That's from 2009. So that was March 2009. So I had moved from my mum's house after that arrest back to Erdington, and the selling continued. And then it was about June 2009 when I get the same knock on the door, boom, boom, boom. And it was police again, firearm police, raided the house. It was linked to some firearms offence in the Erdington area that I was allegedly a part of. That eventually got dropped. But so in June of 2009, I had conditions attached to the first firearms offence, the ASBO, and the June firearms offence. Late July 2009, when I was caught in an area that I shouldn't have been in breach of the ASBO and in breach of one of the conditions attached to the firearm bail conditions, and that's what put me into prison. So during this time, there was GCSE exams. So I was going into school for the exams and then going back out on the streets. But it was on remand before the court heard the case and then determined what to do with me. Luckily, I was with an adult in town. He was 18 years old. He was still classed as an adult. So luckily, that case got thrown out completely. So the breach effectively didn't happen because I was with an adult.
Yeah.
So I spent time in prison for nothing, but it was an eye opener.
How was that? So, because you're, how old are you? 16 years old.
16 years old at that.
So you're going to young offenders. Was it in young offenders in Birmingham or outside of Birmingham?
I think they've changed their name now, but it's called Brinsford. Brinsford, yeah, it's in Wolverhampton. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so, how was that walking into prison? Like, what was that like?
You know, it's actually
it's young offenders, but it's prison for young people.
Yeah. So with Brinsford, they had this thing whereby you go through processing, and they would ask you, "Oh, you're from Birmingham. What side are you on?" And they say you'd either be on the Johnson side or the Berger side, and you tell them, which side you're a part of, so that they put you in the appropriate part of the prison. However, the wing that I was on, there wasn't any prisoners there from my side. They were all in the above 18 side. So I was stuck with a lot of guys that I had problems with in prison. And it was an eye-opener.
So while you were at uni, there was an altercation.
Yes. An altercation which was linked to the involuntary touching of a female, him bragging about the situation. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. An altercation happened. Him and another person were badly injured, and I was arrested.
Charged?
Yes.
So during uni, this is happening during.
Yeah, at that point, I was actually suspended from university. So I studied the whole curriculum myself that for most of that year. And once the sentence was passed, which was a non-custodial sentence, because the everybody withdrew their statements, I was then able to restart in year 2.
So, what was trial like?
No, so it didn't even get to trial. It just literally.
Yeah.
I pled guilty to a lesser offence, and then.
So then you were able to carry on uni.
Yes.
So then tell us the part where, as well, so your university actually helped you.
Yes.
In a way.
They did. I took the same sort of principle from Cochrane Hill to the university. Make sure I'm cool with all of the lecturers, and once I told them what had happened, they put me in touch with some of their lawyers, and I was represented by one of them, and they did a cracking job. Finished my degree, yes. I leave with a 2-1.
So did you come back to Birmingham after
No,
you finished
no,
uni, or you
I-
just stayed in Gloucester?
Stayed away because I didn't want to go back to what I was used to. So I stayed at the same university. I got a scholarship to do a master's degree. Completed that a year later, and that was in international commercial and corporate law. I ended up with a distinction on that one, so that's an A. And then I went straight into the workforce.
So your mum at this point, your mum and your dad and your siblings.
Yes.
What were they like at this point?
The relationship that I'd had with my parents had been much better than it was because I was actually doing things that made them proud rather than things that would just embarrass them, make my mother proud. And that, I saw the look on my mother's face on graduation day, and she was almost in tears.
So you went straight into the workforce. And what was your first job then? Was your first job off of your degree?
Yes, I was a litigator. For those that don't know, it's dispute resolution, litigation.
Was that really hard for you though, going from, because remember you told us, going back, in university, what were you doing to make money?
So,
I know
at university, I didn't get my first job until second year. The bursaries that were given to us, I think it was about £3,000 per term or per year, I can't remember. And on top of that, I had a second bursary as well, which was about another 3,000. So the money was okay because there's not much that I needed to buy, just food, make sure my rent was paid, and pay for books.
So you stayed away from the crack and the coke.
Yeah.
At that point.
I have some story. Yeah. I saw some things I'd never seen before.
Okay.
I started working at Nando's. That was my first job.
How was that?
It's actually good. It was actually really good. I used to eat chicken every single day. It was good. They give you free food, so I couldn't complain.
And you were in uni, so you needed food.
Yeah, you know what it is? You see when you work in a restaurant as a student,
Yeah.
it brings down your food bill because you can just take food that they're not going to cook and eat that at home.
But did you think, because obviously you're working now, did you think, I can probably do this, it's not that bad?
Yeah.
Or do you think, I don't know, I don't know about this?
I mean, it comes with its ups and downs. You have to deal with, the different types of personalities. You have to manage that in the workforce.
Working at Nando's, was there any point where you were like, I don't have to do this, I can literally, I know how to make money?
Yeah, so at that point, and I think this thought process began probably when I started college. I realized that as time went on, there was more and more that I had to lose. In spite of what happened in first year university, I realized that the more experience, the more qualifications, the more experience that I have, more responsibilities that I accumulate, the more I have to lose. And I was never going to end up back in Brentford, ever. So
Yeah.
I realized that working in Nando's, it's not the most glamorous job, but it was going to keep me out of prison.
So do you regret your old lifestyle?
At what point now?
Yeah, now.
No, I don't regret it. I think that it taught me a lot about myself. And I think without it, I probably wouldn't be the person that I am today. So I don't regret it. No, I think I learned a lot of hard lessons from that way of living.
What would you tell little Darren in Harborne Hill?
I would say, stop fighting and focus on the books, because your adolescent years fly away so quickly and there's so much change happening, in your life, that there has to be one constant and focus on something. and that's what's going to be your future. Start with your education. That's what I tell myself.
And so, was it hard trying to convince them like there's life outside of like what we're doing?
So when I made the decision to leave the streets, I left with about 3, 4 friends, and we all had a plan to just leave and just move on to better pastures and have a better future. Those are the guys that I was one foot in, one foot out with, because in college those are the guys I was making money with. So it was no issue convincing those guys. However, the other ones, the ones that weren't my core circle, they ended up where they ended up, and a lot of them that was prison. Some are in the grave, etc. And some have lost their minds, but.
Maybe on the lost their minds, but do you think because I always say, do you think there's like a fine line where, especially kids, because that's my next question of why you think kids get involved, but obviously you're 17, you're making 2 bags a day,
yeah,
and a lot of kids, they see that, they see older people getting that and they want to get involved, but do you think there's like a fine line between making money and actually being involved in a gang, actively on violence, basically?
But there's only so long the violence can go on, because I started off on the violence, putting in work, chasing the ops, as they say, doing all that, but then you need sustenance, you need something to line your belly, so are you gonna find there's an inextricable link between the streets and money making illegally, inextricable. So if you start off that way like I did, you will end up.
So you think that kids, I would say children these days, see the money first before the...
Oh yeah, absolutely, because I think it's a man's natural instinct to want to have access to women, so...
Don't say that, because the internet's going to go mad.
But, I mean, for those that are heterosexual, anyway... Yeah, so I think it's a man's natural instinct, a heterosexual man, to want to have access to women. So, and unfortunately, when you're 17 years old, there's a lot of things that you can't do because that's just not your time. So, selling drugs is the easiest way to get instant gratification through money, because it works. It's proven to work, and it still works, unfortunately.
Getting involved in this kind of lifestyle, do you think it starts from home? Because we did sociology, so when I think about this stuff, that's what I go back to.
Perhaps. I think there's a number of different triggers. It can start from home. I think when there's a lack of structure and order, and I think I suffered from that as well. You seek something elsewhere. You seek something to fill that void. And I think it sucks a lot of young people, and especially for the fact that, nowadays we have social media. Back when I was, younger, social media wasn't a thing like that. It wasn't a platform where you can go to in order to get the latest sort of information. Whereas now, you can go on Twitter and find, or X, shall I say? Yeah. You can go on X and find information before it gets to the major media outlets. So social media it's where you go to get the information. And the problem about that is that it's not always good information. So the information, street type material, which glamorizes the street, that can get to you much quicker than it would have got to us back when we were younger.
Because people say a lot now, and they're saying, it's so horrible these days. I always read comments of whatever the situation is, and people are like, oh, Birmingham's so bad, and I'm like, it's always been like this. It's just, I can record everything is recorded. Like, you can record everything. Yes. Back then, it was only what the news could find out. It's not. We didn't have that back then.
I remember seeing the other day there was a young man who was waving a gun on camera for his TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, it just seems that people want to do it for the entertainment factor.
So that brings me to my next question. So a lot of people are blaming drill music for this kind of lifestyle. Yes. So what do you say to that?
There's always been gangs and criminals. It's always been a thing. It's just that the music tells you much more about it, and sometimes glamorizes it. I think where drill comes into it is that I don't blame drill for creating the problem to begin with, because gangs and murders have always happened. I think that what drill does is that it glamorizes it, and I think that it also encourages it further. So I've heard some songs, I can't remember the artists, of them bragging about killing X, Y, and Z, stabbing that person, doing this to that person. They're bragging about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, we already know on the streets, once a person, hears that from the other side, they're either going to return the music or return using violence. And I think that's the problem that I have with the music. It antagonizes further violence. But I don't necessarily think that it causes it to begin with. There was further causes that brought that about.
Yeah. So you're 31 now.
31, yes.
And you're currently a
senior paralegal, and I'm working towards qualification as a solicitor. So.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier to me that it's been a struggle to actually get here because of your past. Can you talk about that?
Oh yes. So there are certain professions which are regulated like mine, and you have to pass certain tests as well as character suitability, and part of that is criminal records checks. And although certain criminal convictions don't prevent you from entering said profession, it may require certain further safeguards to be implemented, so character suitability and things like that. So, but it's people within the profession who do have criminal pasts. Some as much as armed robbery, others as much as grievous bodily harm. It happens, but you have to be of exceptional character in order to bypass.
So even if you can have you can't.
Yes.
You can't.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't. But if you do, and let's say you wanted to become a solicitor, it's not going to be as easy as your counterpart, which has
absolutely
a clean slate.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say that so that the kids.
The starting point is clean slate.
Okay. So
I think that any parents who have children that are involved in that way of life is to put them around men or women who are 10 years, 15 years their senior, who have already gone past that. Just to see different examples of what life looks like on the other side. I didn't have many of those examples to tell the truth. I mean, there were, but I didn't go looking for them.
You had the opportunity to have like a mentor.
Yes.
And there's schools, I guess, and children in,
Yes.
I guess, poorer areas that don't have access to this, might not have, access to, like if your child's involved in a gang or something like that, you would like to move them away. But you can't, because obviously you don't have the funds to. What is like the next thing that could possibly help this child out of their situation?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because I did get assistance. For me to move from North to South Birmingham, I had assistance from the local authority. It was simple as that. I don't know what level of assistance.
So they knew the situation and was able to move you.
Yes.
That's probably still a thing.
It may still be a thing, but yeah, I had assistance, and I was on probation at the time as well. So the two agencies were able to link up and get me into a safer environment in order for me to thrive. I'm not sure what the level of resources are today, but I would say this. One thing that kept me on track was understanding that, okay, I'm 14 years old now. I'll finish school at 16 or maybe 18 now. Finish school at 18. Where do I want to be in 10 years' time? And what's it going to take for me to get there? Have a solid plan. I'm going to go to college, go to university, maybe do a master's, and I'm going to do that. I had a rough idea of where I wanted to be and the steps necessary to get there. And I think for anybody who wants to get away from that way of living, is to have a plan. Where do you want to be? And if you don't know how or what it's going to take to get there, find somebody who does work towards that.
Yeah. So if you don't have any children, do you?
None yet.
If you was to have children, how would you kind of set them up so this wouldn't be even a thing for them, like having friends of a certain, I guess, gang or being affiliated with certain people? Because
it's glamorized,
Yeah.
It's glamorized because I'll be honest. When I was on the streets, selling drugs is not fun. Having a phone that rings 24 hours a day, you get no sleep, and you're in, no matter the weather conditions, it's not fun. The only thing that's fun about it is what you're counting at the end of the night. It's not fun.
So, the Darren that you are today,
Yes.
How do you feel about Darren today?
I think that I'm in a good place. Health, both mental and physical. I'm working towards, personal achievements in life, and that keeps me going. My family's good, my friends are good. I'm in a good place.
And when you were, let's say, 16, 17-year-old Darren,
Yes.
even the time of the university incident, were you seeing this far? Like I could be there where you are now at that
Yes.
time.
Irrespective of the circumstances back then, I still knew that I'm going to get myself out of this one way or another, and I'm going to complete what I set out to do. And that carried me through.
That's good. That's all I got. Thank you for coming to the store today.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. I'm done.